Hello and welcome to this webinar on peers and peer assessment at Creative Australia. My name is Pip Wittenoom. I'm the Director of Project Investment. I'm joining you from the Creative Australia office here on Gadigal land in Sydney. I acknowledge and thank the Gadigal elders past and present and extend my respect to the lands from which you are all joining the webinar today. To our First Nations panelists that we'll be talking to shortly, and to any First Nations audience members. This webinar is being recorded, and following the recording will be posted and available on the Creative Australia website. The webinar is being live captioned and Auslan interpreted. The session today goes for about an hour, and it will cover an overview of peer assessment at Creative Australia and the role of a peer. We'll have a discussion with some of our current peer assessors about their experiences. We'll have time to answer questions from you about being a peer. And we'll also go through how to submit your application to become a peer and when you need to do that by. So we are on a Zoom call and how we'll use the functionality today. Please, to lodge a question, use the question and answer function at the bottom of your screen on the menu there. Please don't use the chat function to ask questions. One of my colleagues lurking in the background will be using the chat function to post handy links and contacts for you to reference. There'll be some information posted up there shortly, links to our contact details, a link to the frequently asked questions on our website about this opportunity. Questions that you submit through the question and answer function will be moderated by the assessment team, and if simple, will be answered through the question and answer function. And others will be put through to me and to the peers to address at the end of today's session. We aim to answer as many questions as possible. If we miss them due to time constraints, you can either reach out to us to set up a chat to talk to a team member, or we'll update the frequently asked questions section on our website as well. So to start, with an overview of what peer assessment is. So peer assessment involves people from the arts and cultural sector, our peer assessors, reviewing applications for funding against the published assessment criteria and identifying the applications with the highest degree of merit. Our peers assess these applications against other applications to that category or panel, so it's a competitive process. And the number of applications that we can fund is obviously constrained by the budget that we have to distribute. For us at Creative Australia, a peer is anyone who has enough knowledge or experience of the arts and cultural sectors to make a fair and informed assessment of the applications that we receive. The board of Creative Australia appoints a pool of peers to a 3-year term. Those peers in the pool are our first port of call when we form our assessment panels. There are 10 peer assessment panels that review applications for us. Those are the First Nations Arts and Culture panel, a panel looking at arts and disability, community arts and cultural development, dance, experimental arts, literature, multi-arts, music, theatre, and visual arts. These panels may assess applications to our arts projects categories, to our national touring programs, or to targeted programs like the Visual Arts and Crafts Strategy Major Commissionings Projects, very big mouthful, or the Arts and Disability Initiatives. We are committed to forming diverse and balanced panels, so we appoint peers who are representative across Australia's geography, cultural backgrounds, age, gender, disability, as well as arts practice experience and career stage. We are currently seeking applications from people to join our next pool of peer assessors for a 3-year term that will run from January 2025 through to December 2027. If you are appointed to that pool during your 3-year term, you could assess up to 6 times, but it is much more likely that you will assess maybe once or twice. You will be paid for your work if appointed to a panel. Fees are determined based on the number of applications that you will assess, plus the length of the meeting, your time as part of the induction, and you'll be paid superannuation as well. So what does the process of assessing involve? There are 2 parts to this role, and the first part happens individually. Once you agree to sit on an assessment panel, you will read through all of the applications assigned to you and score each of the applications against a set of assessment criteria. You might assess anywhere between 20 to up to 130 applications. And that's dependent on the arts practice and the category that's being assessed. And you'll have somewhere between 3 to 5 weeks to complete the work. Obviously more time if there's more applications. You access those applications through Creative Australia's online application management system. That's the same online portal that you will use to apply to become a peer or apply for other investment and development opportunities that we offer. So the second part of the peer role happens at an assessment meeting when we bring all the peers on a panel together to review and discuss the initial ranking of applications. These assessment meetings are now held entirely online using Microsoft Teams or occasionally Zoom, and they usually take place over 1 or 2 days, depending on what's being assessed. After the meeting, peers have up to 2 working days to finalise and submit their scores, revised scores. And Creative Australia staff then apply the budget to that final ranking of applications down the list until the budget is exhausted. You will not be on your own through this process. The assessment team will be there every step of the way to assist you as a peer. We coordinate, an assessment officer is assigned to each panel to support you through all elements of the process. And we coordinate a range of support to make this accessible to you. It could include childcare, access to internet or computers, support from a carer, interpreters, captioning, audio descriptions, or even just a quiet space to be able to join the meeting from. That's not an exhaustive list. We're always interested in finding out new ways we can make that accessible to you. There's a lot more information about the role in the peer handbook on our website, and I think a link is just being posted in the chat to the peer handbook. Lastly, and most importantly, being a peer does not stop you applying for Creative Australia funding. In fact, many of our peers tell us that their role has been a valuable learning experience for writing their own grant applications and learning about the sector. The restriction to this, or the main restriction to this, is that you cannot be a peer for the same assessment panel that is considering your application. So your assessment officer will work with you hard to manage actual and perceived conflicts of interest or connections to ensure a fair and transparent assessment process for applicants. So they'll be in regular contact with you throughout to identify that, to talk about the connections that you identify and to manage them appropriately. So that's a little overview of peer assessment and the assessment process. We're going to move now to talk to our panelists and then into the Q&A section. Please remember, you can lodge those questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. And as I said, some of our staff will be answering those as we go through, and some will come through to the panel for discussion at the end. Okay, I'm going to ask our peers to switch on their cameras. And I'm very pleased to welcome Luke, April and Caine. Hello. So Luke Peacock is a multi-award winning singer-songwriter and the founder of bands The Painted Ladies and indie rock band Minor Premiers. Great name. Luke is a descendant of the Meriam people of the Eastern Torres Strait Islands and remains grounded in and committed to being of service to his community through mentorship, advocacy, guidance, and support for First Nations musicians navigating the industry. Welcome, Luke. Thanks for joining.
Good to be here. Hey, everyone.
April Phillips is a Wiradjuri Scottish woman of the Galari peoples. Her arts practice is cemented in digital arts, illustration, and augmented reality research. April's use of vivid colour, as you can see in her outfit today, and unlikely digital processes celebrates the potential of computer art for a new world. And April's dedicated mentor to many young people to build concepts and technical skills in digital art making. Hello, April.
Hi, Pip. Hi, everyone.
Last but certainly not least, Caine Chennatt is an arts programmer, curator, collections manager, and is currently director, curatorial and cultural collections at the University of Tasmania, where he bridges the organisation's cultural collections, art galleries, museums, and public art commissions with audiences through a lens of cultural humility. Great term. Welcome, Caine.
Good to be here as well, dialing in from Nipaluna, Hobart.
So we've come up with a couple of questions that we're going to just talk about to start off before we go into opening it up to the audience. So our first question we wanted to spend a bit of time on was, what would you say to someone who's worried they don't have the expertise in every part of their sector or art form, or perhaps has a really wide set of experience in different art forms? So April, I might invite you to kick us off to tell us what would you say to someone who asked those questions?
I think I would say don't be worried. Life's too short to be worried. And I think that everyone is, bringing probably their experience from their art form and their career. But I'd also really encourage everyone to think about their life experiences as well and bringing that to each panel. Also, I feel like, as you said, it takes a village to go through these applications, and that's why you're called a peer, because you are one of a group. So it's really about leaning on each other, asking questions, and making sure that you're kind of exploring things. So if there's anything you don't know, it might be something that other people are also questioning, or something you can gain from that experience as well. And the only other thing I would say is that sometimes we have touch points in different art forms. So for me, I've been on 3 different art form panels, and everyone is so different. And it's really kind of, shown me that the different facets of myself kind of apply in different ways in different panels. So don't be worried and go for it.
I think, April, you've done experimental arts, community arts, cultural development, and what was the other one?
Visual arts.
Visual arts, yeah. So eclectic combination there, but really there are a group of people who move between different panels, and some who just assess for one as well. And so that's part of your application. You can choose to sort of nominate one that you want to assess for, or more that we can consider. Luke, what would you say to someone who's a bit worried about whether they've got the right set of expertise? Oh, you're still on mute. Really like an assessment meeting now.
I think, obviously what April said, just sort of back yourself, I think once you kind of see what it's all about, I think once you kind of start assessing and you're in the meeting, you kind of realise that you do have a skill set and you do have input that is really, really valuable. And I think, I guess a lot of artists do have a little bit of imposter syndrome, which I think is probably what can lead to that kind of doubt. But just, you kind of just back yourself that you're legitimate and that your experience and your knowledge is really valuable, and your voice matters.
And it can be quite good as well to have a panel where you've got perhaps some earlier career practitioners and more experienced practitioners as well.
Yeah, totally. That's probably something that is the most valuable, is that even if there is something that you're a bit kind of about, know that there's more of you, and there's people that have that you can lean on as well, or ask questions of at any point that can help you be more confident.
And Caine, what about you? Anything else you'd like to add about someone worried about applying?
Yeah, I think I might just pick up on the last point. Everything that April, Luke, and that you mentioned as well. The each of the rounds received such a kind of plethora of applications from artists and creatives from all stages of the career as well. So I think there's an empathy that comes with each of the panel as well, being at different stages of their own career as well, to relate to the applications and kind of get a sense of where they're coming from as well. So I think 100% back yourself up. I didn't think that I had the enough experience to, and then I let one round go, and then the next round someone encouraged me to go through it too. And I felt the same at that point. It was only attending a session like this and speaking to others who have had that experience and hearing from others, where I thought I might just put my hat in the ring and see how I go, and have loved it since. And sometimes it still doesn't feel like you've got all the experience you need to be, because it's such a responsibility, but it's a really well supported one.
And, you know, anything could come in those applications that you may be familiar with or have never heard of before as well. And actually, because you're all geographically different and work in have different footprints as well. So there's things you're familiar with, things that you're not. Yeah, so you're learning as much about the sector as you are kind of assessing what the sort of the ideas that are coming in. What about the process of reading and scoring applications? What kind of strategies or tips do you have for managing that kind of work? What about you, Luke? You've done lots of assessments for us over the years, mainly in music. I think we were working out the other day, weren't we?
Yeah.
What kind of strategies and tips do you have?
Yeah, no, mine's have been heavily based in music. I think it definitely changes over. I think the first time, I'm trying to put my mind back to the first time I've done it, which was quite a while ago now. I think if anything, I guess my personal strategy is to just break it up into maybe 3 or 4 sessions. I mean, I think it's just, that's how it works for me, and my how my calendar works. And that kind of gives you a good chance to really sink your teeth in, but not kind of overwhelm yourself. And I think you'll find sort of the beginning of each round, you kind of, you're really, they probably take a little bit longer. So, because you really want to make sure you're not missing anything. And I think you kind of get into a little bit of a rhythm, I guess, where you kind of learn how to read an application with, thoroughly, and catch everything, but without getting sort of too bogged down in it and too kind of overwhelmed with information. I think the first time I did it was a little bit like, well, daunting. But it just said, you find yourself in a rhythm, and I think it kind of, I find personally, I split it up into, depending on the amount of applications, sometimes 2, but usually 3 or 4. Kind of, I'll put some hours aside, each week, and there's a huge lead up too. Like, I never found myself rushing to meet the deadline unless I was super busy and being slack and putting it off. There's a huge amount of time to sort of chip away at them, however you feel like is comfortable, and when you're up to it,
Yeah, and you've done some really big ones as well. I think the music panel seems to have a lot of applications.
Yeah, and you kind of know, all right, this is how I'm gonna approach it, and how much time I'll probably need to put aside, or how many hours are going to need to go into this.
And I think it's a really interesting one as well about I think actually the first time you assess it might be rabbit in headlights because you're trying to work out how to make it work.
Yeah.
Might be the second or third time if you get the opportunity to come back, you've got those strategies in place as well. It's quite
Yeah.
but
even those first times, it's not kind of too daunting because there's so much. You guys provide so much sort of assistance and material and stuff leading into it that you can kind of go to materials to read if you need to and things like that, or you can just make a phone call if you have any questions. So it's
right.
Yeah.
Caine, what about you? What sort of strategies have you used to manage the workload of reading and scoring?
Yeah, I think absolutely, as Luke said, just breaking it up in kind of chunks that work best for how you generally tend to approach your work anyway. So for me, that has been I tend to look at 4 applications at a time, and sometimes that tends to be longer than other blocks because some applications are larger and more thorough than others. But I found that that's been a rhythm that has worked for me. In some rounds, and particularly in the later rounds that I've done, I've kind of learned that for me also what tends to work better is when I do a very quick skim of all the applications up front, and then I don't look at them again that day. So it's just a super quick skim, almost like just flicking through a book, and no assessment, no notes, nothing, just to kind of familiarize with what that cohort that's been allocated to me looks like. And then I sit down and go through those 4 or 5 applications in kind of blocks of time. That tends to work well. I'm absolutely a night owl, so I tend to do things much later at night, generally speaking, and that kind of just blocking off a quiet window tends to work as well for me. And so that's been a strategy I've taken, which also perhaps leads to the next point, which is I tend to then capture all of my notes on a notepad outside the system, because then I can just kind of feel like I'm not grappling with the system or accidentally pressing submit, or submitting raw notes that I haven't really fully formed sentences because they're shorthand for myself. And so I tend to do that, just kind of scribbling away, and then closer to the submission, scoring submission deadline, refine those, and put it in the system as well, and to be prepared for the panel meeting. So hopefully that helps. Yeah.
Well, we were talking as well the other day about what happens when life gets in the way when you're in the middle of the assessment, and what do you do?
Yeah.
Can I pull out? Well, you're getting stressed.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to just talk about that experience?
Sure. Yeah, I think there was once where I said yes to a peer assessment, and then just life got in the way, work got in the way, and perhaps a little bit of procrastination too, if I'm being really honest, or procrastination kind of resulting with the sense of overwhelm of the curveballs that came my way as well. But it was just, I think it's just a reminder really to everyone just to reach out to the assessment team and just let them know what's going on as well. And I think that's been really good, and the assessment team has just been very supportive in that process too. So just letting them know, okay, if you don't see any updates, it's because one, I haven't been able to get to it, but I still think that I can, or and the assessment team have just been really open to just hearing where things are, and if I need to just take a step back or not. I think to just keep the communication open between Creative Australia.
Yeah, and certainly, I mean, we're really fine for people to say, no, I haven't got the capacity to assess this time. And actually, even if you do say yes and then have to withdraw because of, whatever is coming on, we can manage that process. It's good if we know sooner rather than later, because that gives us another opportunity to offer that opportunity to someone else. But yeah, it's a completely normal part of the process. It's very unusual that we would not have around where people have had to withdraw because of other pressures, or we've been bringing people into the later into the process. April, what about you? What are your strategies for doing your assessments?
Yeah, I think blocking out time's a really smart move. I think if I notice that I'm kind of becoming weary or rushing, that's a really good sign to stop there and pick it up another day. we all know how much energy and effort and blood, sweat, and tears goes into these things. So I'm just really aware of, I guess, honoring and respecting all of that time and energy that people have put in. I also really like using the kind of online comments section so that when we're in the meeting, I can kind of look at the application and that comments section at the same time. So everything's kind of held together. And the other thing I really like doing is copying and pasting directly from the application, just to kind of, I guess, have the direct quote or the words around things that I think are like totally killer amazing, or elements where I'm like, you're saying that in the application, but you're not backing it up with your supporting materials. So just kind of really knowing that later on, I'm not going to necessarily remember where that piece of copy was. So I really like, I guess, making sure I'm honoring their words exactly. The other thing that I usually do is to kind of circle back again. So, yeah, I make sure that some of the early applications that I read feel sort of in the same line as the others, because the way that we score things is really relational. So, yeah, the way that I might score something and then Luke scores something, like we might kind of have different scores, but that it's relational to ourselves. So, I guess it's just a kind of check yourself, April. Have you been relational and fair across your kind of scores? Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, we often talk about the rank. It's not the score. The score itself is less important than that you are consistent with the way that you're kind of ranking them against each other and the way that you're interpreting the criteria, definitely. And just something that a couple that both you, April and Caine, picked up on was the notes. So when you are viewing an application, you have sort of the application on one side, and then you have a little comment section where you enter your scores on the other side. And the note section is just for you to keep sort of as an aid memoir when you're going through. Some peers use it, some peers work off a notepad, some, we see all sorts of different approaches. But I think really important point is that you might get asked to discuss something in a meeting. So actually having something to remind yourself about what the application was, why you scored it in a particular way. If we talk about it, what questions you want to ask the panel, there's some of the things that I hear the way peers have used that note section. It's not something that we work with. It's entirely there for your benefit and to help you through the meeting. So talking about meetings, what's it like? It would be great to hear from you guys about what your experience of being in an assessment meeting is. Whether everyone agrees in there, do they change their minds, or is it quite a static, stilted experience? Caine, what's your experience been like of those meetings?
They've been really great, and I think just picking up on the last point, everyone in the panel has been on the other side of this process, right? We've all submitted applications and been unsuccessful and been successful, hopefully, in some rounds, and so there's such an empathy and respect and an acknowledgement of what a gift and what a responsibility it is. So I think everyone comes prepared and have their few applications to champion and questions with the other. I think I found that the first 5 to 10 minutes of the meeting tends to be just everyone kind of almost like sussing each other out or getting a sense of who's who and how and learning a different way to communicate, because every group is a different group, and so I think I found them to be really positive where people are just working out how to communicate to the other person and what does this kind of group communication look like as well. I think so I don't think that everybody agrees all the time, and that's good, because what it means that there's a really neat, healthy debate, and it's very respectful in the way that we communicate. I find that the meetings often been, particularly when there's not a consensus, it's often prefaced with a curiosity or a question or an inquiry. So someone goes, look, I didn't pick that up in this application. Could you share a little bit more about why you think that, or what, I must have missed something, or there's a perspective sharing. I think that's really helpful as well. So and yes, I think in some cases people do change their scores. I mean, I've certainly found that where I've revised certain aspects of my scoring, but there's absolutely no pressure to do it. It's not been a lobbying of trying to convince everybody else to come to your viewpoint as well. I find that there is a natural tendency for some sort of grouping and scoring, so there is a lot of consensus that lands, and it's reflective of the work that the applicants have put into the applications, and then there's outliers, and the fun conversations and the learning also from our peers, I think, happens when we're discussing and debating the outliers and bringing all our lived experiences to that conversation and learning from each other.
I would just say that we've just seen that we've had one of the questions from the audience has been, are there examples when we're talking through this bit about what it's like in the meeting? And if there have been disagreements, have there been any examples that you guys can think of about how big differences of opinion have been resolved? So I'll just plant that seed there for you as we go through. Was anything come to mind on that, Caine? Big disagreements or or differences of opinion, how they might have got resolved?
Yeah, so oh gosh, I mean, again, the container in those sessions are so good that the disagreements have been very respectful. In some cases, the difference in opinion still holds true, and I think it goes back to April's point about that, that self-interrogation of relationality. But even if there's a disagreement that survives that, that's okay. I mean, some peers decide to just stick to their scores and they're open about it, and it's reflected in the scoring. I find that sometimes in the applications, there's a section where, and I've done this too in applying for projects where you kind of forget, you talk about the project you're applying for on so many grounds, but you forget to kind of locate the project in terms of what it means for you. You tend to put yourself last, so you talk about its, primary effort. And sometimes there's a disagreement that comes in from peers being generous and filling in the blanks, but that may not actually, but maybe the application actually hasn't covered it, right? So yeah, I haven't found there to be too many disagreements in that regard that haven't been resolved through discussion and dialogue, and very rarely has there ever been I don't think there's ever been a situation where we've had to go, look, that's too long, we've spent too much time on that, let's park that and come back to it. But I don't think that's ever happened, at least in my experience. Yeah.
And actually, in most peer assessment meetings now, we're not forcing you to reach a decision in the meeting. Actually, you've got time to go away and sort of reflect on your scores as well. So I think it's probably less, certainly things do flare up, but it's probably less pressure to all agree in a meeting. So I think that's definitely a shift of the online process. April, what about you? What's your experience of in the meetings? What it's like in a meeting, how they've worked, whether people have agreed, any big differences of opinion that you've been part of or wrangled?
Yeah, look, I think generally being in one of the assessment meetings is really positive, and everybody's, kind of networking and getting to know each other, and I guess getting a kind of feeling for the dynamic of all of the people that are in the room as well. And yeah, I agree. I don't think there's been any massive disagreements, but definitely some kind of wonderings and questions that sort of get thrown back to each other, and we might not reach an answer really, but I feel like the person, are they called the head of art form, is that right?
The head of practice, yeah.
Head of practice, yeah. So sometimes the head of practice is a really great kind of person who can recenter it in the art form, and is the person that has the pulse on that art form, or you would hope that they would. And so that's also a really nice kind of recentering point when they can kind of just come in with a one sentence moment and everyone's like, oh, okay, yep, that's bringing it back into context. Yeah, but I think, I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, being in the meetings is really, it's really exhausting, but it's also, yeah, it feels like a great privilege and a wonderful kind of experience to learn. And it's sort of exciting because you imagine some of these projects being funded, and then you kind of get in this like, oh, I can't imagine the world without this project. I'm so excited. Like, imagine if it happens and what it might mean, for them as a stepping stone. So yeah, you catch the vibe on imagining these things happening, and it really helps to energize everybody, I think.
And that's a really good pickup as well. I mean, it's not just a bunch of peers sitting on a call by themselves. There's actually a couple of different Creative Australia staff will be in there with you. So there'll be a facilitator. I do a lot of the facilitating alongside other colleagues who don't read the applications. We're just there to manage the meeting for you and make sure everyone can participate. But there's a head of practice, like a head of theatre or a head of dance or a head of so on, and they provide sector context as well, and so can kind of help frame and inform those discussions. And there'll be an assessment officer that you've been working with, and there'll be an artist services officer who is the person on the phone advising applicants and kind of really can speak to the guidelines and the criteria. So it's very much, it's your scoring, but it's very much a shared labor, isn't it? So that you can you're not alone through it, and you've got people you can ask things of throughout. Luke, what's your experience of your many meetings?
They've always been really good. I think one thing I can say is that I always come away with zero doubt about the process from my own personal experience and just the whole process as a whole. Any doubts I have around applications or things, particularly things that I'm, maybe genres of music or scenes that I'm not really across, which also ties back to the little comment box we were talking about earlier. That's probably another great thing that you can just pop in. If you're struggling with an application, you don't know really all the ins and outs of everything, you kind of can pop in the comment box for yourself, maybe ask the others, and then you can kind of get a much better understanding. And I've done so many of them now, and I don't think I've ever come out of a meeting not with any doubt about any application or any outcome, or lost any kind of sleep, or was that the right thing? Did that go well? Because it kind of, the discussions are so great, they're so respectful and open, and you can, everyone has their strengths, and then there's people that don't have strengths in other areas, and having that meeting and that discussion to be able to just openly talk about stuff, and then having perspectives that you don't often think about. I know earlier on, like I said, I've been doing it for a while. And earlier on, I think that people are a lot more wise now to cultural sensitivities and things like that. But earlier on, I found myself a lot more kind of, the meetings were a great opportunity to sort of raise things. Go, hey, like, I don't know if any of you noticed this part of this application, but if you look at it from this perspective, and then people are like, oh, okay. And being able to have everyone's input directly and have respectful discussions around things. People might see something one way, and then a little discussion where people can get sort of put it, up to speed a little bit with cultural things or anything within that scene or that genre of music or that world of that particular practice. I think, and then, the opportunity to go back and relook at your scores and have a think about it. As far as conflicts, I don't think I've not had any experience of anything. There's been a couple of, I think only one I can remember that was a bit spicy, but even that was a bit, that was respectful as well.
It's okay to disagree, isn't it? That's the thing.
Yeah, and the best outcome kind of came across. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, you don't have to agree. In the end, you can still stick by your values and your morals, and and you can still go, no, this is how I think it should be scored, and you can stick with it. Or there's been times where I've just like scored something and then come out of a meeting going, wow, I'm completely changing my scores now that I've heard a different perspective, or something like that. So I love the meetings because you know, and then I can go to other people that have, you know, there's people that have questions about, you know, or even sometimes assumptions about what goes on in meetings and how things come out in the wash, and you're like, no, it's always just the best outcome prevails, you know, everyone, you know,
It's a bunch of people like you sitting around a table or a virtual table talking about art is what it is.
yeah.
Yeah.
And no one's, there's no funny business or no, you know, everyone's so respectful, so cautious of and understanding, and everyone just wants everyone to do well, you know, everyone wants everyone to have a win
Yeah.
in the end. So it's
Just one thing I wanted to pick up on that you said as well is the sense you can make yourself note about what questions to ask. The way we kind of get you to prep for the meeting is we'll ask you to pick out which applications you want to talk about in the meeting. So ones that you really are excited about and want to advocate for, and ones that you perhaps don't understand or have questions about or want to draw people's attention to. So I think, yeah, that's a sort of what we've found that really focuses and gets people ready for the meetings as well, to sort of go, what can I get best from this, from the meeting process? How do I get the advice of the other peers, or how can I share my advice with them in a really collegiate way? So yeah, really great to be able to do that. Got questions. I've got questions from the audience. This is how long is a piece of string kind of question, but on average, how long should it take you to complete the application? Oh, no, sorry, I'm thinking, oh, actually, I'm going to ask this one anyway. I misread the question, but how long does it take you to do each application? Or, you know, when you're sort of reading through it? And I think it'll change the more you assess, actually, but roughly how long does it take you per application? Anyone want to jump in? Maybe April, do you want to say how long it takes you?
I'm someone who's a big believer in time being a bit of a construct, and I'm not looking at the time all the time. So I'm really unsure how to answer that question, but I know that every single time I feel like I've reviewed everything and that I'll come back and have a look at it again.
Caine, any advice?
I'm much like April, I think I lose track of time very easily. So I've resorted to, just as a coping mechanism, to just use my timer. So I think and I'm a slow reader, so I tend to take about 25 minutes. So for a full application, including, like, you know, the letters of support, etc., I tend to set a timer at 15 minutes. In many cases, that's all I need. But for the more, I guess, the applications that come with multiple letters, I do like to read everything, because I hope that when I've submitted applications that everyone is reading everything. So I know that's what we're all saying here. So, and because I'm a slow reader, it takes about 25 minutes, but it is possible to do it within that window. It's a 15 to 30 minute window.
Luke, any observations?
It definitely varies. I think, I'd say, you know, if I was to put an average, it would probably be, for me, 15 minutes. I think it probably starts a bit slower, because as you go, and it's not like you're taking any shortcuts, but you're kind of so familiar with the layout, and you're kind of like, all right, this is what I'm looking for, and you can pick things up. And sometimes, you know, you might spot a red flag really quickly, or something that is just, you know, going to make it a little bit easier for you to score. But yeah, if I find I do one really quickly, I'm like, okay, I'll go, I scored that too quick. I'm going to go back and have a look at it. So yeah, it usually ends up averaging out about, you know, sometimes it is longer if you're really digging deep looking for a specific piece of information or something.
Okay. The questions I've got are a lot probably less relevant to the panel, because they're a lot about how to complete the peer application to be a peer. So what I might just do before I get to those is just ask you guys a general kind of question about what is it that you have really learned about the sector as from being a peer. Who'd like to kick off? Go on, Caine. You start off. You look worried. I thought I'll go throw to you.
Oh gosh. First, there's two parts to this maybe. I think first there's just an incredible amount of talent in the sector across that's happening everywhere, the independent space, the large institution space, the local council space. And I think it's just been such an eye-opening to be a part of that process, to see that breadth. The heartbreaking part that comes to it is that that we can score all these projects, but there just isn't enough, and that's just an indication to everyone in the sector that we need to increase the pie, I suppose. So it's heartbreaking sometimes when there's good applications that may not make it that round, and you want to be there, at that point to encourage the person who has applied to just apply again, right? So, yeah, and I think the other thing that I learned, which is an assumption that I had, is that even for applications that may have tentative other sources of income or other sources of funding, that Creative Australia is not averse or not kind of risk averse to be the first supporter of projects. And I think that was just an incorrect assumption that I'd had prior to being involved in this process, just as an applicant, was that, oh my gosh, there's no point in me applying for this because I haven't managed to get others to back this idea. But really, Creative Australia backs these ideas, and that becomes the basis. So yeah, that's been a couple of learnings, I suppose. I could go on. There's a lot more stuff there.
I will just say we've just had a question come in. Is it feasible to do assessments while having a day job? The question that came in was someone on 4 days per week. What do you guys reckon? I imagine you're all doing this while working, actually.
Yeah, you might need to take a day of leave, or you might need to think about it being absorbed into part of your evenings or weekend. But yeah, I think for the first one that you sit, I think it's definitely worth considering just taking a little breather and really, yeah, taking the time to concentrate on it. Yeah.
April, any other learnings that you want to just flag?
I feel like there is no better way than knowing what's up. Like, it feels like a data set where you get to find out exactly what is happening right now, like this is, and even to the point where what's happening next, because everything has the potential to be funded and then realized afterwards. So I think it's learning what's happening at the moment and in the future is super exciting and something that you learn every single time. And the other really big takeaway that I'd like to call out is just that, we see these forms as being really rigid frameworks. But what I've learnt by reading all these applications is that there's a lot of cowgirls and cowboys out there that are reinventing the framework and the format. And so the way that people express their projects, the way that they use formatting like capital letters, all of these little different ways of telling their story just really shows us that, yeah, we can, I guess, tell the story of the project to get it funded, but also do it in the way that makes sense to us as well. And also seeing some applications where people have recorded themselves talking to camera was a really kind of excellent moment of thinking, yeah, beyond the written form, how you can apply.
I've just seen another question come in about guidance. What kind of guidance we give you if you're approached directly by applicants? Well, because your names will be made public as part of the, the assessment panel when the embargo of the decisions is lifted. Has anyone had any particular stories? I mean, we spend a lot of time telling you you're not on your own and to refer people back to us as part of that conversation. Have you had any experiences you want to, of how you've navigated those moments, or? Well, that's good. Anyway, well, what we say is we will say it's fine for you to talk about your experience of being an assessor, but not the conversations obviously are confidential that you have as part of the assessment process, and we tell these guys to refer them back to Creative Australia staff who can take the heat and and talk about how someone might improve their application for the next round. I'm just going to run through a couple of quick questions. How do you make your application to be a peer stand out? What are we looking for most in a peer application? Look, we want to know why you think you're suitable to assess the applications to Creative Australia. So tell us what experience is relevant to the panel that you are saying you think you are best suited to assess for. So it's giving us the rationale about why you think your experience lines up to this panel. The bio is useful reference point to kind of get us understanding what sort of things you've been doing. So I think really that rationale that you give against the panels is along with the bio are sort of the two things to really focus on. The kind of stats and stuff that you give us, or the, you know, what genres of art forms and so on, that's good for helping us position you, but it's not, that's, you know, the crux of it really is about telling us why you think you're suitable. There's a question about when it comes to referees, what kind of referee would be most suitable. We don't ring every referee to make sure people are fine, but it's someone that we know we can pick up the phone to ask questions of if we're just trying to get a sense of, is this person really well suited for a panel? Usually more down the process when we're looking at forming a specific panel, but at the point of assessing your application, it helps us know who you're connected to. And it's really great when we see it's someone that we know through who's already been a peer assessor as well. So that's helpful because we know that they know the process and that they think you'd be good for it. But it's someone who can kind of, like, if we needed to pick up the phone and go, could they assess this sort of thing? It sort of helps us go that and look at your kind of where you're connected to in the industry. How long should it take you to complete this particular application? Up to you. Not long, I wouldn't have thought. Surely it's just a bit of thinking, reflecting on kind of how you fit to those areas of practice, and your bio you could just cut and paste into. It's, if you apply against one art form, are you considered for others? Yeah, you can apply for up to 3 as part of the panel, but that doesn't mean that we wouldn't necessarily spot an opportunity for someone in the future to assess somewhere else. So all of that information you give us about your art form backgrounds is really helpful for us kind of locating you in a panel. And is this a full-time opportunity or a casual basis of employment? This is occasional contract work. Agreeing to be in the, or getting approved to be in the pool, it just means that you're on our roster of people we hit up several times a year to come and assess for us. There's no obligation that's part of that. You can say turn down offers to assess with no problem. But when you agree to be on a panel, you will have a contract for services for a specific, to read those applications and to work on that panel, and a fee attached to it. So there'll be occasional pieces of contract work that we will engage you for. Do we pair new peer assessors in their first year with seasoned assessors? Well, I think on every panel, we try to have a mix of people assessing, so that it's never entirely first timers. It's often people who are a bit more experienced in a range of ages. Is there anything you guys would say about that mix, as first time or less experienced and more experienced assessors? We sort of touched on it a little bit, but is there anything else you'd add about that?
Only just to second that, each of the panels that I've sat in has had such a diversity of panel assessors that it never felt like it was too skewed one way or the other. I think that design of how Creative Australia puts that group together, I think it's been works really well, and it's reassuring too, because then it just means that every application is kind of looked at really, really thoroughly across the group as well.
Yeah. How do we manage conflicts of interest? That is such a long discussion. So I'm not going to go too much into detail here, except to say the peer handbook explains how we manage conflicts of interest. And if you're coming into the pool, the assessment team will be talking to you at length about that. And it's really not about demonizing those connections. The connections you have to the sector are exactly why we asked you to sit on a panel. It's just really a kind of a dance that we have to do about managing the risk that presents to a fair assessment process. So it's an ongoing conversation. I'm sure these guys could attest to throughout the life of the panel. And just final one I'll do so that we can wrap up in time. How many assessors are we looking for in total? This is really interesting. It's tough. We don't have an exact number because we're always trying to manage having enough capacity in the pool of peers to be able to form the panels, but not so many people that there aren't enough opportunities to assess. But like for the closing date that we did in March, where our peers were assessing arts projects, 3 government touring programs, I think we ended up using about 150 different assessors. So we look at a pool, we've usually had a pool of peers somewhere between 600 to 650 people. Does mean that there might be people in the pool we don't get the opportunity to assess because of the limited numbers to assess. So it's always a balance that we're trying to manage. But what we're finding is we're getting increasing numbers of applications, quite a lot of music panels that we're so actually having that extra capacity in some art forms, visual arts, music, literature, theatre, kind of ones that we sort of might have bigger groups of people available for, just because of the driven and the large number of individuals that who apply to our program. So not an exact number, but lots of people. So we're looking for lots of people to put their hand up. And normally we get somewhere in the region of up to 1,000 people applying to be an assessor. So not everyone will come through. And we're trying to balance diversity amongst that as well. Okay, I've got just quickly final words from our panelists before I start to close the meeting down. Luke, any final words?
Off the top of my head, I mean, I'm still doing it after a really long time, and I've never had a bad experience. I feel like I'm really contributing to the broader arts community, and I feel like it's overall a really positive experience. A lot to take out of it, and a lot to put into it.
Thank you. April, anything, last words from you?
Yeah, look, I think it's just great to be a part of it. And as you're applying, I think it's really thinking deeply about your intentions and why you really want to do it. And yeah, find the ways to tell that story so that, yeah, everybody knows. Because I think that's really important, that we're all kind of bringing ourselves to this. And as I said, our lived experience as well as our career experience. And yeah, good luck.
And Caine.
Yeah, just encourage everyone to really consider applying. It's been a process that helps demystify some of the kind of perceptions and myths of the funding monoliths that we have, and it's a really kind of rich way to contribute to the sector that we all care about.
Thank you. So if after all of that, you still want to put your hand up to become a peer, you need to complete and submit an application form in our application management system by 3 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday, the 6th of August. If you haven't used our system before, please register well in advance of this to allow a day or two for your registration to be processed. The form asks you to provide details about your experience, to nominate which arts practice panels you think you could assess for. We said 1 is fine, up to 3 that is also possible, and to provide contact details for at least 1 referee. It will take a while to work through all of that. So we'll notify you of the outcome. It's got to go to our board for approval in December. So it will take a couple of months. And as we said, we will receive many more applications than we can support, but don't be discouraged from applying, because if we know you're interested, we can hit you up for other opportunities that might come up. So the industry advice process that we run for some of our other initiatives, and it means that you're on our radar. So please don't feel bad about putting an application that perhaps not successful this time. It means we know that you're there. And if after all of this, you think this isn't the opportunity for you, but you know someone who would be great for it, please tap them on the shoulder and you can offer to be their referee. as part of that as well. So that brings us to a close. Huge thank you, April, Caine and Luke, for your time today. Always such a joy to get to hang out and chat about this, and really lovely to hear your thoughts on the process, and thank you for your support. Many thanks to all of the assessment team and other colleagues in our communications team who've made this webinar possible, and to our lovely Auslan interpreters, Madison and Natalie, thank you so much. And thanks to all of you for your interest, for watching this and joining us. We really hope you we see an application from you soon. Get in touch with us if you have any questions through the link posted in the chat. And thank you for your time.